Hi, and welcome to Business Awards Writing Essentials, where we are going to talk about how to write quality business award submissions. This is organised by and on behalf of the Northern Chamber of Commerce and Industry. My name is Tara Whitney. I will tell you a little bit about myself. So I started Whitney Consulting, which is a company that writes grants, tenders, business cases, and obviously business awards as well. We have helped our clients achieve over 85 million in funding in the past 5 years. And we have also managed to be finalists, or have our clients be finalists, for every single business award submission we have worked on. We're based in both the Wheatbelt and in Perth. So we've got people in Pingelly, Narrogin, Beverley, and also in Perth. We were the Wheatbelt Business Excellence Awards WBN Business of the Year in 2020, and we are a finalist for the Australian Small Business Champion Awards this year in 2022. So the workshop content that we'll go through today to give you a bit of information about writing award submissions. First of all, we'll talk about why you should apply. So why should you be applying for business award submissions, because it does take a bit of work. Then we'll talk about how you can prepare yourself to apply and make quality submissions. We'll go over criteria, so the awards submission criteria and how to answer those, and a business awards writing approach to give you some tips and things to avoid when you are writing your application, and I'll summarise up at the end. Just to let you know, this is generic business awards. So we'll be talking about any business awards that you apply for, not one specific award. We won't talk to you about specific criteria or the rules of that particular awards program. If you are wanting to know about whether you're allowed to attach documents for a particular award, you need to go and contact the actual organisation that is managing that award. So contact the Northern CCI if it's their awards. This is a generic business award writing submission. So I will say things like, it depends on the actual award whether or not you can attach documents, and then you need to go and actually find out for your specific one. So the idea of this is to give you the ability to write any business award submission at all, because hopefully you'll be applying for more than just one. Now, why should you be applying for more than just one? So the reason is, obviously, the reason that we sort of question, should I do it or not, is we all get caught up in the day-to-day running of our business, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to apply for awards. But the benefits definitely outweigh the short-term pain. So the first reason that you should apply is for marketing and awareness of your business. So whether you win or you're a finalist, the marketing and promotion opportunities are the number one reason why most businesses apply for a business award. Being a finalist or winning an award is free marketing that gets huge engagement. So as I said, we recently were announced as finalists for the Australian Small Business Champion Awards. And I put up a post saying that we were finalists and put up their little brand, because they send you a logo and some posters and things like that you're allowed to put up when you become a finalist. So I put that up on my post, and it has had more engagement than any of my posts in the past 6 months. It is free marketing. It's free engagement, and people really are interested and they share it. Most business awards will give you a banner or a logo you can use in those social media posts. Add it to your website, add it to your signature, like you can see I've done with mine. I've got the WBEA Business Awards 2020, and I've got the finalist for the Australian Small Business Awards. So add it to your signature, use it, make the most of it. Marketing and awareness of your business is one of the key reasons people apply. The next reason, and linked to that first reason, is industry and peer recognition. So the recognition that you get from your peers and customers, and also from potential investors in your business, is huge. Being a finalist and winning awards gives you prestige. It gives you recognition and positions you as experts. So you are seen as trustworthy business to your customers and to your investors and peers. It adds credibility, because customers know that straight away you're a reputable and you're a quality business. You're not a flash in the pan. You're not a business that is going to fold in the next 6 months. You must be a quality business if you're winning awards. The other thing is that you go to the awards night. Hopefully you make it to the awards night, because the awards night is a fabulous networking opportunity for you. So I'm heading off to Sydney to go to the Australian Small Business Champion Awards. It is going to be really hard actually, because I actually fly back from a business retreat the day before we have to fly out to Sydney. The awards are on the Friday night, and the Saturday afternoon, Friday night in Sydney, the Saturday afternoon, I'm playing a netball final in Perth. So I'm going to have to fly back first thing Saturday morning and then play a netball final. But I'm going, because going to those business awards is a great networking opportunity. I'm also an introvert, so I don't want to go. I don't want to go and be at these awards and be tired for my netball final. But it is networking. It is business networking that is really important and it's really valuable. So I'm definitely going to make the effort and go. So if you can, go to the awards night, because it's a fabulous networking opportunity. The third reason that people should apply is business development. So having to do the work to prepare a submission forces you to look at what you do, why you do it, how you do it, as well as the outcomes of what you do. You know, it puts a magnifying glass onto your business that you usually don't have the time for. It's really, really valuable. So the process makes you realize a few things. Firstly, it makes you realize all the things you have achieved and you may not have stopped to celebrate. When you look at how far you've come, you see what you've achieved, and you see your hard work paying off, and it gives you that motivation to keep going and to do the next thing and to take the next risk, perhaps. You get renewed vigor. So it's definitely worth doing for that reason. Secondly, it makes you realize where you have work to do. So when you face a question that you can't answer, so if you're asked for some metrics, for example, that you just don't have, you haven't been gathering that data, or if it asks you how you measure customer satisfaction and you think, oh, we don't do that, that might be something that makes you think, well, hey, maybe we should be doing that. That could be the next step in our business to make our business even better. So it helps you to see where you're not, where a part of your business is not working as smoothly as it could be, metrics you're not collecting, things you're not doing. And by knowing that, you can see where you should focus next. It also helps because when you go to the awards night, you see what other businesses are doing and what they're doing well, and that might give you a few ideas as well. The fourth reason to apply is staff. Now, that means both existing and potential staff. Awards are really important for this, especially with small businesses. If you can involve your staff in the application process, share the ride with them, it's their success too. They feel more connected to your business, they feel more part of it, they feel more responsible for your business and then want it to achieve. Take them to the awards night. If you've got a small team and you take them to the awards night, it can be a really, really powerful bonding experience and make them feel really valued and want them to work harder and to grow your business more for the next one. And awards also help with recruitment. So if, just as with customers, if you're looking for staff and they see that you have all these award successes, they will see your business as credible, reputable, quality, long-lasting employment opportunity, and as opposed to a risk. So they'll see you as far more, potentially a place that they want to work rather than a bit of a risk being a small business. So you've decided you are going to apply for some awards. The next thing you obviously need to do is prepare. So get prepared. In preparation, the first thing you need to do is choose the awards that you're going to apply for. So awards come up throughout the year, so you might want to have a look and spend some time investigating what's out there, what you would be eligible for. Look at the awards that your competitors or similar businesses to you have been successful in. Find out the due dates. They do usually have a round per year and around about the same time. And put it in your calendar or sign up for their newsletter or their email that will let you know when the awards are opening and closing so that you're aware of it. Look at awards related to both your specific industry and also your location. So for example, the Northern CCI, the Wheatbelt Business Excellence Awards, they're about your location. They're because of where you are located. Whereas there may also be industry specific awards that are specific to your industry that you can apply for. There are many online lists of business awards that can help you find them. So have a Google for online lists of business awards and see what you can find. So choose the awards that you're going to apply for. The next step you need to do in preparation is once you've got an award that you're applying for, you need to read the guidelines thoroughly. So it's the same as if you're applying for a grant. You must read the guidelines. The guidelines can be as simple as just a short web page, or they can be a really big, 20-page document or even more. But you must read them, and you must read them thoroughly. Check your eligibility first to make sure you don't waste your time and effort. And if you're in doubt, if you're not sure whether or not you're eligible, contact the organising body and just ask them. As you read through the guidelines, highlight any key information there that is related to word limits, attachments that are allowed or you should attach, so you know what information you need to gather and what data and statistics that you need. So highlight the key information that tells you all of that. The guidelines will also explain the difference between the categories. So they usually, with business awards, there are a few different categories you can apply for, and there is also usually a limit as to the number that you can apply for. So they should explain the difference between them and how many categories you can go for. Most importantly, check the deadline and make sure you do not miss it, because obviously if you miss it, you're out for another year. You can't apply. The third thing to prepare is to gather your data, gather the information and documents that you're going to need when you're writing your application. These can include your financials, any marketing and business metrics, photos, brochures, anything that you have done in the past 12 months. Usually business awards are about the past 12 months in particular. So anything you've done and have been successful in that you can evidence, you should be doing so. So gather all of that information. It will depend, as I said earlier, on what you are allowed to attach and what the questions are that are asked. Some award submissions allow you to attach one particular thing that they specify what that is. Some don't allow you to attach anything. Some let you attach whatever you want. It really just does depend on the guidelines of that particular submission. And if you are unsure, contact the organiser or the organising body. So go through, identify what information you'll need based on the questions and what they said you can attach, and get all of that information ready to go, because you are going to need to evidence everything that you say in your submission. So, award submission criteria. There are two sets of criteria, just the same as with grant applications. So anyone who's done a grant application before, there are two sets of criteria you need to be concerned with. The first is eligibility criteria, and then there's what's known as assessment or selection criteria. Eligibility criteria is fairly straightforward. If you don't meet it, you're not eligible, and so there's no point applying. So that is the thing you should be checking first, because you do not want to waste all of your time answering all these questions only to find out that you're not eligible. So make sure you're eligible for the award and the particular category that you're applying for as well. Eligibility in business awards centres around a few things. Firstly, the organisation type. So that means like the entity type. So not-for-profit, and it also means things like, are you home-based? Are you a franchise, for example? Or the type of industry you do. So it could be a type of business you do. So it could be based on industry. So it's only for food and beverage industry or businesses or transport businesses. That particular category might be based on that. The second thing about eligibility is organisation details. So that means things like the number of staff, the annual revenue, or how long you've been in business. So it may be that you can only apply if you have less than 20 staff, or if you have more than $1 million in revenue. Those sorts of things are part of the criteria. If not for the award, then usually for the category. The third thing that eligibility criteria goes into is location, so where you're located. So you may only be allowed to apply if you're based in the Wheat Belt or Northern or WA or Australia. So eligibility criteria is really fairly straightforward. The next part is assessment or selection criteria. Now, these are the ones that are scored. Usually, when people are scoring business awards, they will score each question individually. So you may think that a few of the questions are a bit repetitive. You've already answered that particular question or parts of that question. It doesn't matter. You need to answer each individual question. So you might find you're repeating yourself. You might need to say things like, as mentioned in question 3, this is the situation. But you can't just say nothing. You can't just assume that, oh, they've already read that, so they'll take that into account when looking at this question, because they may not, because they score each question individually. So repeat yourself if you need to. And as I said, you can say refer to response to question 3, where I talk about such and such, if you don't want to go into a whole lot of detail, Or if word limits are restricting you, you can say refer to that particular response, because then that makes them look at that response when they are scoring that particular question. You must answer each question to score well. And to do that, the way you answer is exactly the same as a job interview. You don't use motherhood statements. You have to evidence your answers. So what that means is, if you are asked for a question such as, why are you the best in your particular industry? And if your response comes back with, we are such and such an organisation and we are the best, that gives me nothing. That's a motherhood statement. We are exceptionally capable organisation, motherhood statement. Our customers love us, motherhood statement. Gives me no evidence. I've got no proof. I've got no examples. I've got nothing I can score as an assessor. So all of those motherhood statements are completely useless to me because they don't tell me anything. They don't give me any information. Anyone could say that. Anyone can say that, and anyone will say that because it's the question. They all know that you need to be a good organisation to score well. So it means nothing. You need to give evidence and examples. Now, the way to do that is you need to give examples. So think about a SAO answer. So situation, action, outcome. So what that means is, what is the situation, what did you do, and what was the outcome? So if, for example, the question is around how are you community minded? And you might say, oh, look, we're a community organisation because in 2020, when COVID hit, we had a stockpile of toilet paper that we realised we weren't going to need all of that in the next 6 months. So we contacted our local community, we spoke to our local IGA, and we advised the community that if they needed toilet paper, then we had the toilet paper and they could come and get it from us. So that's the situation. This is the situation. This is what happened. COVID hit, toilet paper was scarce, everybody wanted toilet paper. We had a bunch of it. We knew that we weren't going to need it right then and there, so we would be able to restock eventually once the panic was over. So this is what we did. The action was, we contacted the community, we let everybody in our little town know that we had toilet paper, not to panic, not to stress. We let the IGA know we had toilet paper if they ran out and needed some. The outcome was that our town was protected from the craze of toilet paper rush that everybody else experienced during the COVID onset, and and our community feels that we care for them. They can see that we care for them. We are good people. We're part of the community. We've been thanked. Here's an example of an email that we got. Here's what they said when they thanked us, because it was somebody who couldn't get to Perth to go to the shop, so they sent an email to say how much they appreciated our assistance during that time. That's an assessment criteria answer that is going to get you scored. I probably don't recommend using a toilet paper example, but it's an assessment criteria answer that is a SAO answer. It sets out the situation, the action that you undertook, and the outcome that was achieved. It doesn't just say we are community minded as a motherhood statement and give me no experience, example, evidence as to why. So with your award submission, in every single case, you need to be conscious of evidencing any claim that you make. So if you make a claim, if you say that you are something or that customers think something, you need to figure out how to evidence that, whether that is with an example or whether that is with an attachment. So it might be, see attached photos if you're allowed to. You need to think of how you can evidence your claims. So that's how to answer your assessment criteria. So the next thing we'll talk about is the business awards writing approach. So I'll go through a few tips and a few things for you to avoid. The biggest and the most important tip that you need to understand with writing business awards is you must answer the question. It sounds ridiculous, and every single person I say it to says, oh yeah, I always answer the question. No, you don't. Because 99.9% of submissions fail. That's a made-up statistic, because they don't answer the question. Any single assessor that you ask, if you ask them one of the top 5 reasons why grant submissions or business award submissions fail, their number one answer will be because people don't answer the question. You must answer the question they are asking you. Read the question, write your response, go back and read the question again. Make sure you have answered it and that you have answered all parts of it. You can't just answer one part of the question. So, for an example, if there's a question which says, describe your products and services, what makes your business unique and sets you apart, something like that. You can't answer the question by telling them all about your products and services. These are our products, this is what we do this product, we do this service, we do that. That only answers half of the question. They've asked you a couple of things in there. They've asked you to describe your products and services, and they've asked you what makes your business unique and sets you apart from others. So you need to answer both parts of that question. You've got to cover everything that they ask you in the question. If you take only one thing away from this video today, please let it be that you must answer the question. Read it, write it, read the question again. Once you've finished reading it, reread it and check it against the questions. Once you've finished writing your submission, send it to somebody, the bottom point in my tips, proofread, send it to them and ask them to look for whether or not you've answered every question, because that is one of the most important things. Even if you don't necessarily have everything that you need to answer the question. So it might be a case that you don't have the metrics for that particular question yet. So they're asking you for your marketing metrics or something along those lines. Even if you have to say that you don't actually have metrics for that as yet, and explain why, because maybe you haven't done marketing yet, or you haven't done this, or you haven't done that. But then explain what you plan to do about that in the future. We don't have those metrics as yet because we haven't set up Google Analytics. However, that is already on our plan for the next 6 months that we will be doing that. And then tell them what you do know. But we do know that the marketing that we have undertaken has been successful because our business revenue grew by 30% in the period before we started marketing and till after we started marketing, or because we have all this feedback. For example, we have this email from a customer. So even if you don't know exactly, even if you can't answer the question exactly as it's asked, say that, explain why you can't give them exactly that, tell them what you plan to do about it in the future, and give them the information you can give them to answer their question. As I said, don't forget that each question is scored individually. So you have to answer that question, and even if it means you have to repeat information, answer that particular question, and then say it again in the next question if you have to. The next tip that I will give you is an absolute key to business awards is identifying and highlighting your unique selling point. So being able to highlight your unique selling point in your application and tell your brand story. So what is unique about your business? Why do people use your business instead of your competitors? Why are you better? What is it you do that's better? What do you do differently? You've got to explain that. You've got to identify what it is to start off with, and then you've got to make sure it's really clear and highlighted throughout your application. So for my business, I highlight a couple of things. So unlike my competitors, I spent 7 years assessing grant applications. So I assessed it for WA's biggest grant program, Royalties for Regions. That's what I highlight. I highlight that is what I've done, and that is important because it means that unlike my competitors, I know exactly what assessors are looking for when they assess a grant application. So I'm able to make sure that is included and covered in any grant application I write. So that I explain in my business award submissions, why I am different. That is my unique selling point. now that I have been going for so long, 5 years, now that we've been going for 5 years, I have added another unique selling point is that unlike my competitors, I've got my clients over $80 million in just 5 years. It's way more money than others have got their clients. So this is why we are better. This is why people use us. And that is what I explained. That is my unique selling point for my business. So you need to identify what yours is, what you do differently, what you do better, why people use you instead of others. If you're not sure, ask your customers. Why do they use you instead of others? Is it your price? If so, how do you make sure you have such a low price? What is it that you do? Do you have better buying power? What is it? How have you ensured that you have that unique selling point? Is it your customer service? If so, how do you make sure that you have such great customer service? All of that information needs to be included in your submission. And that also falls into the tell your story. So telling your brand story. So how did you start? What is your goal or mission? You want to get the assessor invested in you. You want them to be interested in your business. When they read your answers, you want them to have an understanding of you and your business and to feel connected to you in a way that they won't feel connected if you haven't told them your story. So set the situation. What made you do this? What are you up against? What's going on? What is your story? So my story can involve the fact that I was living in Perth and I never thought I was going to be a business owner. I'm a completely risk-averse kind of person. So I had never intended to start a business. And then my husband got transferred to Pingelly. And so we moved to Pingelly, and all of a sudden I couldn't do my assessing job for the government. So I thought, well, I love writing. I know about grants. I'll write grants. And I started my business with no knowledge whatsoever, but I contacted the right people. I spoke to people. I listened. I learnt. And after about a month of thinking that I was going to just, do this little business while I was in Pingelly and then go back to working for government, I decided, oh no, this is for me. I want this. I want to be a business owner. I love it. I'm thriving. This is brilliant. And that's my story. That's how it started. So I went from thinking that I was going to do this little side thing for a little while I was living in Pingelly for a couple of years until I could get back to the big smoke and go back to the government. Whereas after less than a year, I decided that I loved Pingelly. I really didn't want to ever have to leave. And I was never going back to government. And I wanted to be the biggest grants company in WA. And now I am the biggest and most successful grant-specific company in WA. That's my story. And when you tell people that story, they go, oh yeah, that's great. And they're invested, they're interested, they know you. So try to tell your story through your submissions. The next tip that I'll give you is to remember your audience and write to them. Any piece of writing, you've probably been given the same guidance and the same advice of write to your audience. The assessor may not have ever heard of your business, so you cannot assume that they have any knowledge about you or your business or your industry. You must explain and evidence things. You can, however, be sure that an assessor of a business award will understand business. So if you start using terms like marketing metrics and USPs, they understand about that. They will understand about social media marketing. So you need to talk about those things so that they can relate their knowledge to your business. But they don't know the technical terms for your particular business. So don't start using jargon about truck parts or some other thing that anyone who isn't in your industry wouldn't know and understand. If the assessor doesn't understand what you're saying, you won't score well. So make sure that you're clear. And if you do have to use any technical jargon, you explain it, or any acronyms, you explain them. The next tip that I'll give you is, like I've mentioned before, evidence. You need to give detail, not motherhood statements. You need to evidence all of your claims. You can do this with statistics such as Google Analytics or business analytics from your CRM system if you've got a client relationship manager, by detailing an example through the SEO method we talked about, situation, action, outcome, by attaching evidence like photos, pamphlets, graphs, financial statements, anything like that is a way to provide evidence. So to give you a bit of an example, One of the questions that we have answered for our business in the past, a few years ago in 2020, was a question about describe your target customers, how you market to them, the effectiveness of these activities. Part of what we wrote was Whitney Consulting found success marketing to not-for-profits and small businesses through Facebook with 278 likes. Page views were up 21% in February and an 81.08% new visitor acquisition rate. We conduct a monthly Facebook Live Q&A session for people to ask questions about the funding process. We post about grant opportunities, grant and tender writing tips, blogs, testimonials and videos, as well as team photos. We post at least once every weekday. We target businesses specifically through posts in a number of business Facebook groups. And we went on. But you can see there how I have said what we do. We do this, we post to here, we post to Facebook, we do live Q&As. These are the things we do. And I've also given statistics and evidence. These are how many likes we have. This was the page views were up by this amount of percent. So it's all very detailed. It's detailed. It's not just fluff. You've got to give them detail and evidence when you're answering the question. The next point or tip I'll give you is you must comply with all the rules. So you must comply with all the guidelines, any templates or other requirements set by the organisation. So they may set word limits. They may set what you can and cannot attach. They may say that you must attach your financial statements. You don't want to be disqualified for attaching a 10 pages of documents rather than they've said you can only attach 2. So you really must read all of that information. The next point is you must boast. You must talk about how good you are. It's not something that many people are comfortable doing, but you must do it. And so it may help you to have, speak to your staff, speak to your customers, speak to your family, somebody who is more willing to boast about you than you are. It may help to get them involved because this is not the time to be modest at all. The assessor needs to know that your business are amazing. So you need to tell them that. They need to know about some amazing qualifications that you have. They need to know about all the wonderful things you've done. They need to know how brilliant people think you are. Don't be afraid to include financial data or talk about all the wonderful things that you're planning because you're worried that other competitors might find out. The application should be confidential. If you're unsure, contact the organising body and ask them. Or you can even put a comment in there to say, please keep this information confidential to make sure that it is kept confidential. The other thing that you can do is if you're not unhappy, you're not really comfortable with putting in the exact financials, you don't want to say what your revenue is, you can use percentages. So the business revenue has grown by 20% in the last 12 months. Our expenditure has grown by 10% in the last 12 months, whatever the percentages are, rather than putting in dollar figures. I prefer to put in dollar figures because I think they are a better understanding. So you might say that you've increased your revenue by 50%, which sounds great. But then when you put the financials in, it might be that you've increased from $10 to $20. So, it's not... Percentages don't necessarily tell the whole story, and that can be to your benefit or it can be to your detriment. So have a look and see what the story it is that the percentages are telling, and if they're not telling a great enough story, you want to include the financials, you can do that. Don't be afraid to do that. It's not something that should in any way get back to your competitors, but contact your funding body if you're concerned. The last thing I'll say is get someone to proofread it. Grammar, spelling, and clarity. Ask them to check, have you assumed knowledge? Is everything clear? Or have you used jargon and assumed knowledge and so it's not really clear what you mean by this response here, or I don't really understand this part here. Get somebody to read it and say that to you. Ask them to make sure that you've answered the question because, as I said, that is number one. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of my tips is answer the question. So make sure they read through it and check that you have answered the question. So they're my tips for business awards writing. Now we'll go into what to avoid. And in some ways it's the flip side of what we've just talked about, but there's a few more things that I want to cover with you. Don't lie or overinflate your success. Definitely be aspirational if you're talking about your plans. Definitely highlight all of your successes, and you know, you don't need to go into a whole lot of detail if you had a bit of a flop, unless you're explaining what you have learned from that failure and that you took the risk and it was brave, and this is how you minimize the failure, and this is what you've learned from it, and this is what you're doing. You don't necessarily have to include the negatives as much, but just don't lie or overinflate your success. Judges may very well quality check. They may check claims, and some of them may even know you. So don't lie. Don't be too wordy. There are usually word limits, but even if there are not, be aware that assessors are not reading one application. They're not just reading your application. They're reading a lot, 10, 20, who knows. They want clear and concise answers, not wordy, long answers that are just made up of fluff. Just give them the detail, give them the facts, give them the information they need clearly and concisely. On the same hand, my next point is don't be too brief. What that means is one-sentence answers are unlikely to give enough detail and enough information to answer the question and to answer all parts of it. You cannot just say in a question that asks you how you target your market, you cannot just say, we do Facebook advertising. That is not enough information. We need to know, well, who is your target market, and what do you mean by Facebook advertising? Do you post every day? What kind of things do you post? How many likes have you got? What's your engagement like? All of that sort of detail is stuff that we would want to know that you need to include. So don't be too brief. The next point is avoid unexplained jargon, abbreviations, acronyms, and technical detail. Like I said before, if the assessor doesn't understand your answer, they won't score it highly. They don't need to know how you fabricate a truck and all the jargon and technical detail of fabricating this truck. They just need to know what you do differently than other truck manufacturers. What do you do better? What have you done in the past year to enhance the way you fabricate trucks? Have you purchased some equipment that now does it automatically instead of manually? Don't get bogged down in technical detail. Just tell them how you run the business and how you do what you do. Don't use jargon and things that they're not going to understand. And then the last point is avoid assuming you're not good enough. A lot of people will get to a question in one of the submission award submissions and struggle to answer one of them. They might struggle to answer a question because they don't have that information. Often then people think, oh, that's about a bigger organisation, that's about a bigger business. Smaller businesses don't have that sort of metrics, those sort of data, that sort of information. They don't have those sorts of business plans and things and whatever. And you might think that and then go, it's not for me. Obviously, I'm not good enough. We're not a big enough business. It has to be a bigger business to get through this application. That is not the case. Even these large businesses don't necessarily have it all going on. And just because you do things that are in a way that is more suited to a small business than to a large business, doesn't mean that you're not doing the right thing. So you must answer. Don't put not applicable or just ignore it or give up at that point. Just answer the question and answer it honestly. So with the marketing question, for example, you may not use social media, or you may not have the metrics in place that you think you need to answer that question. For starters, answering the question may actually help you to decide that you need to start looking at social media, and maybe you should start gathering metrics. So it's actually something that is going to help you in your business development. So you should definitely answer it. But secondly, you need to answer it to score. You may, for example, use print media or the radio because you found that works better for your industry or for your location, your town. Just say so. Or maybe you are in such demand that you can't keep up with the customers that you have, and so you took a step back with marketing in the past 12 months because you are so in demand, and your goal for the business is to make sure that you don't grow so quickly that you can't continue to deliver the quality to each customer. So you decided that this past year should be spent focusing on growing your capacity to meet demand. So you decided to spend it on growing your capacity to meet demand before you then go and get into marketing maybe next year. So that might have been your decision. Say so. That is not a bad decision. From a business point of view, that is good thinking. That is good planning, good thinking. And so you spent the last 12 months purchasing this piece of equipment or hiring more staff or changing, streamlining your processes so that you can meet the capacity before you start marketing. Say that. Don't just not answer the question because you don't have the metrics or you think that you're not good enough. So, in summary, make the effort. It is worth it. It is absolutely worth applying for every business award that you feel that you would be eligible for. Answer the question that is asked and answer all parts of the question and reread it and make sure you've answered the question. Evidence your answers. Any claims that you make, please make sure you figure out how to evidence them. Identify your unique selling point. Speak to your organising body, so whoever it is that's running the award submission. If you have questions, if you're not sure about something, eligibility or what you're allowed to attach, etc., just ask the question. They're not they're there to help. So ask them the question if you have any questions. Also, there are businesses like mine. We do write business awards, but we also do an advisory service or a review service. So if you want someone to review your application, your submission, we can do that as well. So there are businesses like us that do that. So if you need help. My name's Tara Whitney from Whitney Consulting, and this was on behalf of the Northern Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So I'd just like to thank them for helping us to get this information out to you guys. And best of luck. You know where I am if you need me, and I'm sure the Northern Chamber of Commerce and Industry would like me to say, please contact them if you have any questions as well. Thanks, guys.